We are ready for Mr. Lavalais. Is that you?
Yes, ma'am.
Introduce yourself, tell us your name and your DOC number.
My name is Albert Lavalais, and my DOC is 330949.
Right, and Mr. Lavalais, your counsel is here in Baton Rouge with us today, so I'd like you folks to enter your names in the record.
I'm Susan Seymour for Albert Lavalais.
Louis Seymour.
Okay, and go ahead.
Michael Champagne for Albert Lavalais.
Okay, and generally, counsel makes the presentation at the end. Let me just recognize the other folks who are here in support, whether it be here or at the penitentiary or on Zoom. We have Karen Lavalais, Akemi Lavalais, Anthony Lavalais, Charles Lavalais. We have the Parole Project here with us on Zoom. Ariel Lavalais, Margaret Rux, Michael Champagne, Ann Wallace, Albert and Patrice Lavalais, Alvin Ketchings, Molly Sullivan, and Darrell Waters. So I have Michael Champagne, who will be speaking in support, and we have Albert and Patrice Lavalais, both of whom will be speaking in support, or one of those will be speaking in support. We also have the Parole Project. So the way this is going to work, Mr. Lavalais, I'll read some identifying information in the record.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Marabella because your case has been assigned to him.
Yes, ma'am.
He'll take the lead on the interview. Once we get through the interview process, we'll hear from those folks who've indicated they'd like to speak on your behalf. At the very end, you'll be allowed to make a statement, then I'll turn it over to your attorneys to close it out for us with their presentation. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Lavalais, as mentioned, your DOC number is 330949. You're here seeking a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in St. Landry Parish, the 27th Judicial District, for first-degree murder. In November 1994, you received a death sentence. That was vacated. In 2001, you were resentenced to life without parole. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you answer Mr. Marabella's questions, please?
Good afternoon, Mr. Lavalais. My name is Tony Marabella. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lavalais, how old are you, sir?
I'm 57.
You'll be 58 in a couple of weeks or so. How about a week?
July 28.
How long have you been in prison on these charges?
31 years, sir.
And how old were you at the time you committed this crime?
I was 19, sir.
I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the 19-year-old Albert Lavalais.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what was going on in your life. How far had you gone in school at age 19?
I went to school 5th grade up to the 5th grade.
And it's my understanding you quit to work on your family's farm. Is that right? Or work as a farm? Tell me why you quit school and what you did after you quit school.
Well, I quit school to help out on the farm. Started working on the farm, just working, doing yard work, whatever I can do to help, around the house and working. That's pretty much it.
As a youngster, did you drink or do drugs at all?
No, sir. I didn't start doing no drugs till like in my teen years, like about 15.
When did you first start using?
Smoked a little marijuana.
Okay. And what did you progress to, if anything, after smoking marijuana at 15?
I just every now and then somebody would give me something to smoke. We'd smoke with them, and then we started to drink a little bit, on weekends or something like that.
How about other drugs? Cocaine? You ever use cocaine?
No, sir.
So strictly marijuana and alcohol?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How often were you smoking marijuana?
Well, when I can get around it, I would smoke it with my uncles,
How often were you drinking?
On weekends. I drink on weekends.
Now, Mr. Lavalais, it's my understanding this is your first offense.
Yes, sir. Well, I had a speeding ticket.
Well, first serious offense, okay?
Yes, sir.
So tell me, how does a 19-year-old young man get recruited to kill someone for money? Tell me about that.
Sir, if I really could answer that truly, I don't really know where that began at, but I think it started out as working for George Paul Smith and just working and every day he had some kind of little game he played, or I called it a game because he was, I guess, molding me. Or
how long did you work for him?
I started working for his dad first. I was about 10, 11 years old. We used to pick pecans on their property. And then my dad came into the play. My dad bought some property from his dad. And we cut their grass, cleaned their swimming pool, and did their flower beds and things like that. And they owned a whole bunch of property, cattle, and things, so forth.
Now you said he started out by doing little games and such. What do you mean by that? Did he?
We would go in the woods and shoot cans. We would go in the woods and shoot squirrels, and just hang out with him every day. He would come get me after work. He would come get me and hang out with him.
How was it that he broached the idea of you killing his wife?
He asked me one day if I could kill somebody, and
general conversation or specifically his wife?
General conversation. And I said, bro, I said I could, just mouthing off, I guess. I called it, and then it went away, and then he came back later and brought it again. And then it kind of went away. And then one day, which was February 12th, 1985, that's when he approached.
And tell me what happened. Tell me what you did.
I went, I got to work that morning. I went to work that morning.
And he promised you $50,000?
Yes, sir. He said he would pay me.
Pay you anything at that point?
Sir?
Did he actually pay you anything up front?
Yeah, he gave me money here and there, Yes, sir, he did.
So what did you do? Did you agree to do that?
Yes, sir, I agreed. And that day when he came and handed me that gun, and he said, go in and ask for a flashlight. So I went in and asked for a flashlight. And when she opened the door, I walked in and shot her, and I left. And
I know you've had a lot of time to think about this.
yes, sir, I had.
Tell me as best you can recall, what was going on in your mind as a 19-year-old? Tell me why you would agree to do something.
Scared, fear, pressure. It's just ignorance on my part at that time.
Did he have any sort of control over you or something?
Well, I don't know. I guess he owned everything my family owned. Everything that was for my family was for his family. The house we were living in, the property we had, we owned. The crawfish pond, my grandfather crawfish for his dad. The truck my dad probably was driving at that time, he owed money to him for that. Just now that I got older, I learned my family really was in debt to his family. My mother worked for him as well.
Let's go back to the day that this occurred. Now, did he give you a gun? Did he give you the gun to use?
Yes, sir.
He told you to go and ask for a flashlight.
Yes, sir.
Tell me exactly what happened when you went.
I went in, I went to the door, I knocked on the door, I asked for a flashlight. When she said, she turned to go get the flashlight. I walked in and behind her and shot her and left and closed the door and left behind. I shot her until she dropped and then I left.
How many times did you shoot?
I shot 4 or 5 times, I guess. I shot until she fell and then I left.
What did you do after that? Where did you go after that?
I went to this, he left to go bring the kids to school. So I had a tractor, I was on a tractor, I rode to this little place where we met up every day, where we kept like the diesel and, you know, filled the tractors up and stored all the tractors and stuff like that. I drove over there, it was cold that morning, February on the 12th. I drove over there and when I got there, he made it there about that time. He takes the gun and he, you know, we go on to Cottonport like we're supposed to go. And on the way there, he throws the gun out the window somewhere along the road.
And you weren't arrested for what, 5 years after that?
It was more like about 7 years.
7 years?
Yes, sir.
92, I think, is when you were arrested.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So tell me what did you do from 1985 till the time you were arrested? Let's talk about that time frame.
From 1985, I lived in Bunkie at the time, and
still working.
I still work for him. He passed by. He came by the house every day. He checked on me 2 or 3 times a day. I went to work. Even if I was like late for work, he was like, call me on. I had a radio in my truck and all that. He would call on the radio to make sure I was on time. He wanted to keep me close around him. So, you know, it's like watching out so I don't mess up.
Time. Did the police ever come and talk to you?
Yes, sir, they did. They talked to me like when it first happened.
Did they suspect you? Did they question you as if you were a suspect?
They questioned me. They did everything. They questioned me and everything.
It's my understanding that in 1992, they intercepted a letter that he had sent to you about trying to do away with a witness that was going to be testifying against him. Tell me a little bit about that. Had y'all talked about that before?
The letter, I had never seen. I didn't see the letter until I was. I went to. They called me from. I was living in Dallas at the time. They called me from Dallas, and the FBI called me from Dallas. Then they brought me to this place, and we talked about. But they never showed me that they had a letter until like, you know, later.
What were you doing in Dallas? Were you living in Dallas at the time?
Yes, sir. I left and went to Dallas.
And when did you leave? When did you ultimately get away from Mr. Smith and move to Dallas?
I left and went to Dallas, and when I got to Dallas, my uncle helped me. You know, I stayed with my uncle.
And about what time frame was that?
That was like probably 85, the end of 85, 86, somewhere.
Did Mr. Smith continue to try to keep you close, as you said?
He would send family members and all that to try to find out where I was at in Texas and all that.
Did you have contact, very much contact with him between 85 and 92 at the time you were actually arrested?
He knew where I lived, everything. He found out where I lived through my uncle that's deceased now. Found out
how you got arrested. Tell me what happened and how they come get you.
Where they asked me to come to Texas, to come to Louisiana. So
They
I came.
did, FBI?
The FBI did.
Okay, go ahead.
I came to Louisiana and went to Lafayette, and they approached me, and then they started talking about the letter and what the contents of the letter, why the death penalty and all that. And I think I went home like that day or the night. And then the next day I came back, another conversation, and that's when I confessed to the crime.
And you explained to them what you did and how you did it and why you did it?
Yes, sir.
And were you then arrested and put in custody?
Sir.
That's when you were arrested and placed in custody?
Yes, sir. That
And
was,
you've been in prison since then, 92?
yes, sir. That was April 12th, 92, somewhere in there. I think that's when it was.
Let's talk a little bit about, you've been in prison for 31 years.
Yes, sir.
Tell me what sort of programs you've taken that have been important to you to perhaps get you to really understand the significance of what you did and maybe why even you did it. What can you tell me? What programs do you think have been very helpful to you?
Well, I can name two that was very instrumental in my life and really changed me to understand. I always knew there was a purpose, but I didn't understand how to deal with what I went through, my crime, how to really deal with what I needed to grow, what I needed to understand everything that was going on in my life at the time, because I was like lost. And one day I come in from work and I saw something on the board said hospice volunteer. So it stuck out. I went to lunch and I come back in, and every time when I passed by it, it caught me again. So I asked one of the guys what was hospice, and he explained. He said that's taking care of the illness, the sick people, and all that.
We're gonna talk about your work in hospice in just a bit. I've seen it, and we'll talk about that. I guess what I'd like to know about your process and your thought process is, your crime, even though you were only 19 years old, a murder for hire, so to speak, is not like a crime of passion or a manslaughter or something like that. I mean, that was that's a very cold-blooded sort of a crime. Did you know his wife?
Yes, sir, I did.
Did you get along with her? I mean, was she?
She was a very nice lady and helped everybody. She came to and loved everybody that she came to know. And Sheila was special, I would say.
And what have you thought about? Why is it you did that? I mean, what can you tell us today that changed in you? We're going to talk about hospice and we're going to talk about some of those things, but what in you, as you look back on what you did, how have you been able to process that and forgive yourself?
Regrets, remorse for what happened. Also, thinking about that, some of the classes that I participated in, like victim awareness.
Talk about some of those for me. The victim awareness.
Victim awareness. I not only victim awareness helped me to grow into really grow in what I learned in victim awareness, because it helped me to understand that when you do something, there's not just one victim. You make a lot of victims. My wife, my kids, Sheila's family, Sheila's brother, her kids. I left them without a mother. It's it's so much, you know, so many victims you make, you know, and what you put your family through and her family went through by the loss, you know. It made a whole lot of victims, and you know, I'm I'm glad that I was afforded that opportunity to learn more about that.
What would you say to her family if you had an opportunity to talk?
I apologize for that day, that February 12th, for taking the life of Sheila Lamont Smith, who was very special. And if she could live today in me, I would like that light to shine some kind of way, you know, because she was a beautiful person. And I want to always remember that she was a beautiful person, not what I allowed myself to become to do that.
Let's talk a little bit about your hospice work. When did you get involved with hospice? When did you start out with hospice?
I got in the hospice about like 2003, 2001.
And I think you mentioned you saw some signs that talked about.
Yes, sir.
Tell me how you got interested in it. Tell me about your process going through hospice and what it's meant to you.
Hospice has gave me a lot of helped me become a man, because now I'm allowing myself to see the gift of life is so precious, and helping people through a process that I never knew was so special at that time. And you know, guys used to tell me, you go in the hospice, you're gonna clean up another man. I don't even see it as another man. I see it as a precious human being going through a stage in his life that I want to help. And you know, it's not just going to the hospital. It's not just hospice. Hospice is all over. In my dorm where I live at, on the walk, guys that needs help, older guys that's, you know, can't shower themselves. You know, I mean, it's just different things as that nature, sir.
Are you still working with hospice today?
Yes, sir.
You've been outside the prison walls with hospice, haven't you?
Sir?
You've been outside of the prison walls with hospice, is that right?
Yes, sir. I've spoke to different groups, tours, and I've been to New Orleans for the accept awards for hospice on behalf of Warden Burl King.
And what has that done for you? How has that made your life more rich and perhaps understood?
Remorse, redemption for my wrong, which I never can make that right. You know, but giving back to others, that's what I tend to try to do, you know, the rest of my life.
I have read all of the letters and all of the accomplishments that you've done in hospice.
Yes, sir.
That is certainly in the record, and something I know is very, very important. Certainly something that really gives back to the community. Let's talk a little bit about, and I'll let you talk about hospice more, and I think we'll have probably some people talking more about hospice. Let's talk about some of the other things that you've done. What about your vocational work? You've done some welding.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
I learned to weld since I've been here. I went to welding school. I learned to weld here, do numerous of projects here. Also learned fabricating. I also taught welding school for about 3.5 years to young kids that was coming in to Angola, hoping that, you know, they would go out there and do the right thing.
Did you get your GED?
I was in school, going to night school. I volunteered to go to night school to get up to par for the GED. And I took a high set, which they call it a GED, like 2010 or somewhere in there. I'm not sure exactly when. But I stayed up all night working on a project, and they popped in and said, "You're taking a test today." I almost got the test, and then kind of, went around here and then, and I never went back until later. Started the school again, and then the pandemic showed up, and then I got moved around, and then I started back, enrolled again for the night school to try to get back in to take a higher set again. And they moved us again because there was the changing of the prison. Because we worked outside the gate, they moved the ones that worked outside, they moved us to a different area. So what I did, I enrolled in there to try to get in their GED, because every time you move somewhere, you got to restart that process again. So I signed up again, and they allowed me to take the TAID test again to try to get back in.
How long have you been a Class A trustee?
Almost 20 years, sir.
Now, in 30 years, you've had 11 write-ups. Is that right? When was your last write-up? Remember?
My last write-up for having cigars on the rodeo ground at work.
How long ago was that? Do you remember?
2017, sir.
Now you do, I do want to put in the record, although there's nothing you can do about this, you do have a law enforcement opposition. But what you do have that is oftentimes we don't see is the family of the victim supports you today. And that says a lot. Warden, what can you tell us about Mr. Lavalais?
I can tell you that Mr. Lavalais has been a model offender. I mean, at the age of 19, being groomed by somebody and, money being present in the situation. I mean, I can see how he easily did this, but, being here and seeing Mr. Lavalais do his work in hospice, and also he volunteers for Point Lookout when we have to bury somebody. Often these offenders, he don't even know, or they family, he don't even know. I think it's amazing the thing that he do. And one of the things that I do know that he participated in the offender victim dialogue, and he had a chance to sit down and talk to one of the victim's sisters, I think, about the crime, and they understood the reason why he did it. So I think that speaks volumes when you said that the victim family was unopposed to it. So I really think he's ready to go back into society, and I don't think he's the same Albert Lavalais he was when he was 19.
Thank you, Warden. Comments. That's all.
I don't see any other questions, so we'll hear from those who are here in support. Could we first hear from either Albert or Patrice Lavalais?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, sir. What would you like us to know?
I would like you to know that that my father has always been a father to me. Growing up without one or that father figure, but my uncles played a huge role in that. Just my work ethic and everything that I'm able to accomplish. Every time when I feel like I want to give up, it's like he feels that. He calls me and he calls and check up on the girls. We have 5 daughters that I would love for him to be able to see every day. But I mean, just those motivational speeches for someone that has been incarcerated and not able to play a role in this outside society, and still be able to give that positive energy and to be able to push me to the next level. And every time when I feel like I want to give up, I think about his words, and it just want to make me strive for excellence. That being said, I'm an executive chef partner now. I actually had dropped out of school when I was in 11th grade. I ended up going back and getting a high school diploma, a culinary degree, and I'm still furthering my education. My wife of 14 years, she met my dad and fell in love with him, and just his positive energy, you know, how he always is just being selfless about anything, you know. He would give you the shirt off his back, and it doesn't mean it doesn't matter if he had to walk through the cold and the rain in order for him to be able to get home. Long as he know that you're warm and safe, you know, I think that speaks volumes. And I definitely think that, you know, he'll be able to be able to make it in this society that we have these days. And you have a lot of support that's backing. You know, we already told him any and everything that he needs, he has it. You know, and I just want to be able to see him and hold him and, you know, have a real conversation with my father, and, you know, it not be timed, and, you know, or we can't get too close or whatever case may be. And, you know, I pray that you guys make the right decision. And I swear to you guys that he will not let you down, because he have a strong support around him and a lot of love around him in all his grandkids, that they'll make sure that he succeeds.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Mr. Champagne? Yes, please.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of Albert Lavalais. I met Albert Lavalais back in 2001. We met him during the hearing. Howard rdering. I had contacted him by state police. Communicated with him by mail, and then I became his spiritual advisor in 2003 or 2003. So I've known him for about 22 years, 23 years. So I've walked with him through a lot of the process of the 31 years in prison, 22 of those, and of course rehashing that terrible moment when killed Sheila, and helping him with forgiveness. We walked through that. He always, as became Catholic in prison, and we would have opportunity for the sacrament when I was visiting with him, and always dealing with remorse, helping to forgive himself, to ask for forgiveness, and then to be able to forgive others in prison, because we obviously cross one another in our daily life, certainly in prison. So Albert, in the 22 years that I've known, has made tremendous progress. You know, always think about the penal system. It's got a triple goal: punitive. You got to punish. You can't actually have consequences. You never bring that life back, but there's consequences. And his over 30 years in prison, he's accepted. Punitive stuff doesn't help unless that person discloses receiving. He has protect society. We lock people up because it's an injustice. People are dangerous for society, and the terrible thing that happened, and society has been protected. But I can tell you, in my encounters with him, compared to offering the housing and work next to me, we have nuns, I have people, young kids and stuff, and I trust him with my life. I trust him with them, and I can certainly have a great deal of confidence that he's not going to break parole. He's not going to do any quarantine from now on. And then thirdly, rehabilitation. We try to rehabilitate. We try to make people better. And Howard became a better father by being in prison. I used to proofread his letters to Ariel and give him advice. And he's saving money. He's working at night, collecting the money to send him home for their high school graduation prom. Doing things. He did things for the church. We built the church in 2008. He made the kneelers. He told me he in the scriptures he had to kneel, not laying in bed with the president to kneel, but he progressed into his rehabilitation. Came to know right and wrong. He came to know the dignity of human life with hospice, and it continued to bring back the remorse of what he did, and to try to make it back a character. So another great deal of sacrifice he did in taking care of his patients. When I go see him, a lot of times it was a long delay, an hour, sometimes 2 hours, because he was at the hospital. He collected some money, went buy them toothpaste, was bathing them, helping them, bringing them full board of it. So if he's granted parole, which I 100% support, knowing both sides of the story, obviously, but people do change, people do get better, and I know he's done a great deal of good in prison, but I'd love to see that spot taken by somebody that can have the same results. And I'd be willing to work with them down the stretch, because I think it will be a tremendous amount of good for us in the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The parole project, please, you'd like to get from you.
Yeah, good afternoon. Kerry Myers with Louisiana Parole Project. This is maybe the most incredible story of tragedy and redemption that maybe I've ever encountered. And as this board has seen a lot of hearings, and so have I. What I can tell you, and I know Mr. Simone will talk about that, but I can tell you the Albert Lavalais, that Parole Project is willing to and ready to assist. We hope that Albert is granted today and comes into our program because we want to be able to offer the things that we do, the mentors, the mentorship, the coaching, the services to help him through his transition. I know Albert personally. I've known him for a very long time. I know this is probably a little bit off of what I would normally say, but this Albert's, what you see here is the sincerity, the character is as real as I've ever seen. Albert has been nothing but a life of service while he's been incarcerated. Anytime that someone has needed Albert to help them, he does. That's evidenced by his work in hospice. That's evidenced by his work as a welder, giving his time and talents by teaching, giving his time and talents by building things to support good causes. He's always given his time and talents to do something worthwhile. This is the first felony offense Albert ever committed. And then he lived a life where he married and raised a family, had children, and it caught up with him. But it goes to show, I think, his mentality, the totality of him as a person. Coerced into an act, he still led a life that was worthy and raised children and is still married to the same woman after more than 35 years. We would love to have Albert in our program. I can tell you, as Albert's as a friend, and I guess I'm again probably crossing the line a little bit here. I would ask this board to look at Albert as the person sitting in front of you here, as quality of a person as I met in Angola, and ask this board to grant his clemency request today.
Great, thank you. All right, I'd like to ask Albert if he has a statement to make before we turn it over to his attorneys. Albert, is there anything you want to say to the board?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to read a letter that I wrote, if I may read it.
Sure, go ahead.
To you, ma'am, sir. It says, my name is Albert Lavalais. Today, and for many years, I've lived with the deep regret and remorse for taking the life of Sheila Smith, who was a mother of 3, a sister, an aunt, a daughter, and a friend to so many. When I truly started to understand the magnitude of not just the crime I committed, but how many other people it affected close to Sheila that loved her, the shame, the embarrassment, and the remorse began to run deeper inside of me. I understand my action can never be undone. The only thing I've known to do is to show the sorrows I harbored by doing everything I can each day to show I have truly changed. And the person I look at today is a man that remembers have deserving the life was what I took. I allowed the power of that truth to help become, because I have hurt them enough. while incarcerated, I have submerged myself in hospice program. I have involved myself in this, especially more than other things. I've realized that all of these years I've been subconsciously trying to apologize to Sheila for what I did by believing she sees me helping others and respecting their trust. I failed her trust, I failed her trust. She allowed me as someone who meant her no harm. And I will forever hold debt to that, because life is a gift that I have not the right to take. I just pray that I can forever allow Sheila's light to shine. Humbly and respectfully, Albert Lavalais.
Thank you, Mr. Lavalais.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Good afternoon.
It's cold,
Yeah, sorry.
Is everybody better?
This is good.
I'm Susan Seymour, appearing on behalf of Albert Lavalais, whom I have known, and I am sorry if I should emotional. I have represented Albert and been in continual contact with him since August of 1998. This August will be 25 years. I've watched Albert grow, mature, and become the wise, caring, compassionate man he is today. As you have heard, Albert takes complete responsibility for his crime. He feels tremendous remorse, and he always will. He knows he can never take back what he did, and the pain and loss in Sheila Smith family, as well as his own family. In fact, because of that, the pain he caused, Albert did not want to file an application unless Sheila's family would not object to it. For all of these reasons, there are things Albert would not say to you, but I will. Albert shot and killed Sheila Smith because her husband, Joey Smith, wanted him to. Albert was completely under Joey Smith's thumb. Although there was a contract ruling, the fact that Joey offered money to Albert actually had very little, if any, connection to why Albert did what he did. Much bigger factors were the fact that Albert was 19 years old, illiterate, had a 5th grade education, and a brain that wasn't fully formed. He had very poor decision making. Further, Albert had worked for Joey since he was 11 years old and was groomed by Joey Smith to do whatever Smith wanted. Sadly, Albert didn't recognize the manipulation. He thought Joey Smith was his best friend, like a godfather to him. In fact, both Albert and his parents were dependent on the Smith family and Joey Smith for their livelihood and even for their home, because it was on Smith land and owned by the Smiths. Because of all these factors, Albert didn't know how to tell Joey Smith no. I say none of this to excuse Albert's actions or lessen his responsibility for the crime, but to explain perhaps his mentality when the crime was committed, and to assure the board that what Albert did would never happen again. Albert's no longer immature, illiterate, or capable of being manipulated to do something against his strong Christian morals. During his 31 years of incarceration, Albert's focus has been on helping others and making himself a better man. The kind of man Albert is can actually be seen in how he's chosen to help other people. It takes a special person to do hospice work. And Albert has done it for more than 20 years, and he excels at it. Albert's also excelled as a mentor to other inmates. He's taught many inmates how to weld. He's counseled many others, including men on death row. He's trained many of the inmate hospice volunteers. He's cooked countless meals for other inmates, often with food he grew himself. Basically, if Albert can help, he will. As you've heard, Albert's worked very hard on improving himself in Angola, and he's taken a numerous amount of courses. I won't tell them all to you. He also, though, completed a job skills training program, has been a certified welder since 2007. He's in the process of finally getting his GED. He has a very low risk assessment number, a good record. In short, Albert has done everything he needs to do in Angola to make himself capable of being released and returned to society. Albert has been rehabilitated in the true sense of the word. Significantly, if he is granted clemency, he has the support and assistance of the parole project, as well as strong family support, as you've seen. Albert has both in-state and out-of-state residence and employment agreements, and he would be happy to be guided by the board and or the parole project as to what's most appropriate for him at this time. Karen, his wife of 38 years, has already made it clear that if Albert's granted clemency, she's going to live wherever he lives. Last October, Albert was diagnosed with prostate cancer. And he's faced his cancer, the treatment, and the current wait to see if the treatment has been successful with faith and positivity. This also shows who Albert is today. As does the fact that Albert took his medical time off of work to work on his programs. For all of these reasons, and the others you have heard here today and seen in his record, we respectfully ask that the board grant Albert's application for clemency, commute his sentence to 16 years, and make him immediately parole eligible. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. I can be prepared to vote. Mr. Mirabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Lavalais, it was a pleasure to meet with you today.
Same to you, sir.
Your honesty and the way you were forthcoming with us today. You know, this is a tragedy. No question about that. You've explained to us what happened, how it happened. You were 19 years old. I have to say that from what I've seen and from what I've read, I have to agree with Ms. Seaman. You were under the control and a lot to do. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it certainly does, at least in my opinion, give me some understanding as to why a 19-year-old young man did something like that. You have an excellent prison record. You have good comments from the warden. You have been a trustee for a long time. You've got an excellent transition plan. Louisiana Parole Project does an excellent job for us and for the inmates that come before us. Vocational skills, and most importantly to me, your hospice. That is just something that I know how difficult that is, and I know how important that is for prisoners. Based upon all of those things, my recommendation, my vote would be to recommend the governor that you commute your sentence to 60 years. Good luck to you, sir. I'm just one of 4 votes.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Lavalais, you kind of like a breath of fresh air for us. Sitting up here, your case was relatively easy for me to decide. And I agree with Mr. Marabella. I agree with everything he said, and I vote to commute your sentence for 60 years.
Thank you, sir.
My vote is the same for the same reasons. Good luck to you, Mr. Lavalais.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Lavalais, my vote is also the same for the reasons that have already been stated. I won't go over it again. So you've received a unanimous vote today to make the recommendation that your sentence be commuted to 60 years. Good luck to you, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you, ma'am.